I would like to call this April 25th school board meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Coleman? Here. Ms. Bergeron?
Here.
Ms. Crawford? Here. Dr. Chris Gonzalez? Ms. Trubin? Here. Mr. Wallace? Ms. Sina?
Here. All right, thank you. At this time, we will have our belief statements read by our student reps, Mr. Parikh and Mrs. Fitzsimmons. I guess not Mrs. because you're not married yet, so just Miss Fitzsimmons. Thank you.
We believe that every student has the right to an excellent education in a safe, experiential, and imaginative learning environment. We believe that every student deserves equitable opportunities to learn, grow, lead, and serve. We believe that an intentional focus on future-ready skills and dispositions integrated with essential academic knowledge develops an empowered 21st century graduate. We believe that mental, emotional, and physical health are essential conditions for optimal learning. We believe that collective efficacy and shared accountability are vital ingredients to a productive, empowered workforce. We believe that Winchester Public Schools must be learner-centered, agile, and courageous in modeling the power of public education across our Commonwealth, country, and world. We believe that a vibrant public education system positively impacts the social, economic, and civic well-being of Winchester. We believe that embracing the diversity of our students, their families, and our community is a strength that unifies us. We believe that to achieve equity, we must clearly define and monitor to the extent to which all learners and groups are empowered through access, diversity, and inclusion. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is Chairman's comments. I do not have any comments at this time, so I'll pass it over to Dr. Van Huykelen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As is on our agenda tonight, just excited to celebrate the great teachers that we have here in Winchester, and our WPS Teacher of the Year, Katie Lamb, who represents more than 400 educators that teach our kids every single day. And as Katie said, when we talked to her at Coral, she knows that we got a lot of great teachers out there, and so she's really excited to represent them, and just so proud of our educators here in Winchester, the work that they do every single day with our kids. Also want to remind our public about the Innovation Showcase that'll be taking place this week, starting at 4 o'clock at the Innovation Center. Lots of great work by our students that will be for sale to bid on, and if you haven't followed them on Twitter or on Facebook, you can see some of their great work. I see Corey Banton in the audience here, so you've been working overtime with our kids, I'm sure. Last minute details, especially in the carpentry lab. So excited about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Van Huykelen. This time I'll open up for the board to express or share any comments that they may have this evening. Mr. Bergeron? Ms. Holman?
I'm reminded that school is almost out. I mentioned to our school board reps that they have 1 month left to go, and Ms. Fitzsimmons said 20 more days. So I'm appreciative to them for their service this school year, and I'm looking forward to the year being done.
All right, thank you. Ms. Trubin? Ms. Crawford?
I'd just like to say I congratulate the Teacher of the Year, and also I congratulate all the teachers for all your hard work. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Okay, now I'll turn it over to our student reps. I'll start with Ms. Parikh. Ms. Fitzsimmons?
Well, today at lunch, the students were filling out thank you cards for some of the teachers, and it just gave me a chance to reflect on how thankful I am for all of the teachers I've had and all the teachers that my classmates have had, and my brothers. So thank you all, to you in the audience, and to all WPS teachers.
Thank you. All right, that moves us to item 2 on our agenda, recognitions. And Dr. Van Huykelen just spoke about something exciting that happened just in our division, and right now,
as representatives of the Winchester Public Schools family, our 2023 Teacher of the Year nominees. process which brought us here this evening. There was a nomination process at each school, of course, where school staff, principals, division administrators, nominations by their peers of folks to be Teachers of the Year at each of their buildings, and then and we had an interview panel, a committee of folks, and I want to thank them for their participation, some of which are here tonight. Noemi Garcia Rivera, parent and parent liaison. Kelly Carey, our reigning Teacher of the Year. Dr. Veronique Walker, Equity and Family Empowerment Coordinator. Mr. Jake Bula, Executive Director, and Mrs. Marie Emo as our board member representative. That committee looked at teacher principal nomination letter, the teacher's philosophy of education, information about them, and then each of these folks were gone through a process of an interview, and that team looked at educational background, teaching experience, leadership experience, professional accomplishments, professional development, influence upon them as a teacher, why they became a teacher and are continuing to teach, their philosophy, examples of their craft, their teaching, their educational knowledge, their community connection, their educational message, and then both their oral and written communication. So all of that led us to select the division level Teacher of the Year. And what I'd like to say about each of these individuals is that every one of them is a master teacher in their own right. One of the most important things we do as an organization is to bring new people into the calling of teaching and learning. And when they join us, we tell them that of course they were hired for their expertise, their experience, their accomplishments, but most importantly, we ask them to join us so that we can entrust them with our most precious resource, our children, and for them to serve as role models for our students and our community first and foremost. And as evidenced by tonight's nominees, we are most fortunate to have each one of them as colleagues. So congratulations to all of our Teachers of the Year. And now we'd like to recognize each of them in turn, and their principals will come up and present them to you, starting with Frederick Douglass and Mrs. Downey. And yes, nominees, please do come up so we can look at you while they're talking about you, okay?
It's an honor to be first this evening. Thank you so much. And it is a great honor to recognize our Frederick Douglass Teacher of the Year, Senora Patricia Acuna. It's a great privilege to recommend her as the Winchester Public Schools Teacher of the Year. She arrived in the United States 3 years ago from Chile, joining Frederick Douglass Elementary School staff as the 4th grade Spanish dual language immersion teacher. In the short time she's been a member of our staff, she has had a positive impact on her students, her colleagues, and our FDS families. Her passion for teaching, her perspective on global learning, and her desire to grow as a professional are evident in her classroom every day. A visit to Senora Acuna's classroom quickly reveals her commitment to high expectations and student engagement. As she teaches Spanish language, cultural awareness, and math, she uses effective strategies that inspire and motivate her students to achieve. Using the Virginia Standards of Learning and grade level content in Spanish, Senora Acuna incorporates global themes and cultural perspectives in ways that are meaningful and exciting for her young learners. In our classroom, it's not unusual to see students interacting through the use of technology with children from Spanish-speaking countries around the globe. This year, her class has received postcards from all over the world as part of an ongoing project-based learning experience in which they have grown in their writing skills and their understanding of global interdependence. Those of us in the office have enjoyed getting those postcards as well. Every time one comes, we say, oh, here's one from Colombia today. So yeah, it's pretty neat. She also incorporates the Sustainable Development Goals into her teaching, most recently challenging students to think about ways to make our school a more environmentally conscious, sustainable community. Her students came up with a plan for our school and then invited me to the classroom where they presented their proposal. Every student was excited and fully engaged in that activity. The culture and climate of Senora Acuna's classroom is caring and inclusive. She builds meaningful relationships with her students and families, providing academic and social and emotional support. She often assists Spanish-speaking families who are new to the community, helping them transition and feel included in our school. Students in her classroom feel cared for and loved every day. She participates in every opportunity she can to grow and collaborate with others. She takes classes, attends workshops, and shares her knowledge with her colleagues. She has participated in a number of our Participate workshops, the agency that brings our international teachers here. And I often don't even know she's participating until one of our visitors comes from North Carolina and they say, look at all the things Patricia's done in the past 6 weeks or the past 2 months. It's amazing. She has also presented at our Virginia Dual Language Educator Conference. We're proud to have Senora Acuna as a teacher at Frederick Douglass. Our staff, students, and families have learned so much from her. Her passion for teaching, her enthusiasm for learning, and her love of children are evident in all that she does. I strongly recommend her for the Winchester Public Schools Teacher of the Year. We are so proud to have her at Frederick Douglass. She's a superstar.
Next, we'll have John Carr and Mrs. O'Donnell.
All right, I am thrilled to introduce Nicole Schimek, one of our PEEP teachers, as our John Carr Teacher of the Year. I could not be more honored to present one of our PEEP teachers, Nicole Schimek, as the John Carr Elementary School Teacher of the Year. Ms. Schimek embodies the characteristics of a dedicated educator, leader, learner, and serves as a model for other teachers. Ms. Schimek joined the John Carr staff 2 years ago. Prior to arriving in Winchester, she taught in Connecticut, Suffolk, and Tennessee. Ms. Schimek holds students to a high standard at all times, regardless of their age or ability. In her classroom, her lessons are targeted for individual student learning levels, differentiated based on various methods of data collection, and given consistently in the classroom. Ms. Schimek is assisted with the transition at John Carr to science of reading practices and a move away from traditional text to decodable readers. Her knowledge of sound instructional practices is unmatched. Her students consistently benefit from instruction that is well-planned, organized, and engaging. When you walk into her classroom, you'll see engaged students participating in rigorous data-driven instruction. She builds positive relationships with students and their families. She reaches out to families throughout the week, sharing information that can better help students in the classroom. When her students are struggling in school or frequently absent, she communicates with families to ensure student success in the future. Ms. Schimek serves as an instructional leader on the PEEP team, participating in and leading discussions that push her fellow classroom teachers to rethink prior methods of learning and engage in new ones that are beneficial for students. She's compassionate, enthusiastic, and dedicated to her craft. Ms. Schimek dedicates countless hours to her students in school. I am proud to present her as the John Carr Teacher of the Year.
We'll ask Mrs. Buckley from Daniel Morgan to come up. We need to get this nominee to an athletic event quickly, so that's why we're asking them to come up next.
I'm excited to have J.C. Quinn, the Daniel Morgan Middle School art teacher, so I'll make this a little lower, with me this evening. He does coach the JV, is that right? JV baseball team at Hanley, so he wants to make it back before the end of the game. And this is a little long-winded, but I wanted to make sure I did you justice. It is with great pleasure that I recommend Mr. J.C. Quinn for selection as the 2021 to 2022 Winchester Public Schools Teacher of the Year. Mr. Quinn has been an educator for 12 years and has worked at Daniel Morgan Middle School for the past 5 years. He holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in sculpture with a minor in art history from West Virginia University. Additionally, he holds an art education certification for pre-K through adult. JC is passionate about teaching art, and that is evident in the way he collaborates with other staff members and interacts with students on both the Daniel Morgan Middle and John Hanley High School campuses. JC contributes some of his success as a teacher to having an exceptional role model as an art teacher when he was young. She is a former State of West Virginia Teacher of the Year, and in his words, he wanted to be her. She loved her trade, and she developed strong relationships with her students that he has worked hard to emulate. As he grew older, developing his artistic skills brought him great joy, and he dedicated a lot of time to refining his skills. He truly loves creating, and to this day can often be found drawing, painting, or creating visual art. At Daniel Morgan Middle School, we have a focus on personalized learning and a dedication to creating project-based learning for our students. JC has been a leader in developing opportunities for students that allow them to have extensive experience with our identified skills and dispositions that will help them be successful beyond middle school. Most recently, he presented his latest project-based learning experience to our staff on our last professional development day. He explained the planning and design process of expressive portraits line drawing and fielded questions from his colleagues that allowed them to expand upon their own knowledge and understanding of project-based learning. JC sees project-based learning as an opportunity to expose students to other ways of thinking, different cultures, and ways to see the world around them. Our students love to take his art classes and often request to take the semester-long course for the entire year. JC has an innate ability to reach all students in a way that is memorable. When I am working on a personalized plan for a student who needs additional support and a calm approach, I can always depend on JC to take them into his classroom. He will do so because he genuinely cares about their future and will consistently go the extra mile to help them be successful. In my 5 years as principal of Daniel Morgan Middle School, I have never known him to experience a negative interaction with a student. JC has coached the John Hanley High School baseball team for the last several years and can often be found volunteering his time to the Daniel Morgan Middle School wrestling program. He is an example for our students in that he consistently pursues his passions and works hard to give those around him that same opportunity. Here is what a colleague had to say about JC. Mr. Quinn embodies the qualities of a dedicated, determined, and dynamic teacher. Throughout the past year, he has not only taught his students the academic and artistic aspects of art, but he has cultivated deep, meaningful relationships with his students, which have empowered them to have confidence in themselves. When visiting his classroom and while observing his interactions with students, it is clear that Mr. Quinn makes an impact on the lives of kids in this community that cannot be quantified. Additionally, he is a team player in the school at large who has exemplified flexibility and grit this past year. Mr. Quinn has embraced all of our initiatives at Daniel Morgan Middle School and Winchester Public Schools and has been an advocate for PBIS, empowered learning, and equity in our classrooms. He was chosen as the division artist to create our Empower 2025 artwork that encapsulates who we are in Winchester Public Schools. This is fitting in that JC exhibits every essential skill identified in our strategic plan. He is inclusive, maximizes voice and choice, and dedicates time to ensuring there is ample opportunity for our students to demonstrate growth on future-ready skills and dispositions. I cannot think of a better teacher, person, or role model for Winchester Public Schools than JC Quinn. He is most deserving of this recognition. Thank you. And you deserve every single word. Every single word.
Now we'll have Dr. Bryant from Virginia Avenue.
Good evening. I'm not sure what happened to my teacher. She texted me right before coming here and said, "It's at John Carr, right?" And I'm like, "Right." So hopefully she will be here and you can meet her in person. I know it wasn't her intent to be here, and I just hope she's okay. Yeah. So it is my pleasure and honor to read this letter of commendation and recommendation of Rita Peters to be the Winchester Public Schools Teacher of the Year. Ms. Peters is a kindergarten teacher at Virginia Avenue, Charlotte to Hart. Ms. Peters represents the best in the teaching profession. She is, first of all, an outstanding classroom teacher. Ms. Peters has a deep understanding of the Winchester Public Schools curriculum and of effective teaching strategies to support her students in academic growth. Ms. Peters is a school-wide and division leader. She serves as her grade level team leader. That role requires meeting with the school leadership team and her grade level team to discuss and implement school and division initiatives and policies. Ms. Peters also serves as a mentor to new teachers. And further, she serves on the division's mathematics kindergarten curriculum team and has served as the faculty's teacher advisory committee representative for 2 years. Ms. Peters was instrumental in getting our dual language program off to a successful start. She collaborated with our first Spanish literacy teacher to inaugurate dual language at Virginia Avenue, Charlotte to Hart in the 2019-20 school year. Before that, she attended meetings and a Participate conference in North Carolina to better understand the purposes and supporting structures and ideals of dual language. It is because of her work supporting the initial dual language classroom that the program continues to be full each year. Her teaching duties are doubled as a dual language English teacher. Both she and the Spanish teacher work with 48 students a day, switching them midday. Ms. Peters is recognized by her colleagues as an outstanding professional. One colleague stated this about her: Rita exhibits many qualities, making her an exemplary teacher. A few that stand out are strong, clear communication skills that foster relationships and aid in anticipating student needs. Patience, adaptability, engaging teaching style, resilience, and flexibility. The students are truly blessed to have Rita as their teacher. She cares, and it shows every single day. The Winchester Public School Division has many outstanding teachers. Ms. Peters represents the quality of a teacher who we would be proud to present to the region as Winchester Public Schools Teacher of the Year.
Daniel Morgan Intermediate, Dr. White.
All right, I'm excited to talk about Mrs. Headley here. She's a phenomenal individual and great teacher. So I said it is a great honor to recommend Mrs. Headley as the Daniel Morgan Intermediate School nominee for WPS Teacher of the Year. She has served as an ESOL teacher in the division for several years and is going into her 4th year at DMIS. Prior experiences include her work as a curriculum coordinator at the Language Center of Philadelphia and a diplomatic assistant at the Embassy of Japan. At DMIS, the Teacher of the Year process is decided by peer nominations and votes. In one of her nominations for Teacher of the Year, a fellow educator described her as a student-centered teacher who always has the best interest of her students at the forefront. She is knowledgeable about their needs, both inside and outside of the classroom, and utilizes strategies to most effectively instruct students based on their needs. She constantly presses the reset button to make the learning enriching, rigorous, and translatable to our students and their world. I have learned a great deal by working with her and hope to continue to do so for many years. We hope that too. In another nomination from her professional peers, they said, everyone benefits when she is in the classroom. Her support with our PBL model has been a tremendous benefit to the students and staff. This has made our ESOL program flourish over the past couple of years as many students who enter DMIS in needs of services are able to exit the program and be placed on monitor status. I love picking her brain with ideas on how to make our content just right, and of course accessible for all of the students, but especially with our group of language learners. Instructionally, Mrs. Headley works relentlessly to close the achievement gap. So many of her students struggle, and despite this, she has each student wanting to do better and celebrate their individual successes with her. This has been seen and celebrated by her colleagues daily. Mrs. Headley has notably been the recipient of 2 Hanley grants since joining the DMIS family. Her most recent grant focused on getting diverse literature and Spanish libraries to our dual language program, impacting current students as well as those that come into the program in the future. She also serves as a mentor and peer buddy to some of our new teachers. She supports and guides them through the initial trials and tribulations as a new staff member. It has been awe-inspiring to watch a creative mind that never stops thinking of ways to support DMIS students and teachers, both inside and outside of the school. Mrs. Headley is a problem solver, an out-of-the-box thinker, and above all, a team player. Mrs. Headley showcases and embodies the passion and skills that a teacher should have to represent our school district as Teacher of the Year for not only Daniel Morgan Intermediate School, but also Winchester Public Schools. Congratulations, Emily.
Dr. Bryant and Rita, come on down. Rita, the whole room's been talking about you. But come on down for a picture and Everybody, please acknowledge Rita Peters.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're here. It was a really busy day. We had a field day. She participated in some interviews for a position at my school, our school, and then she had this. So anyway, we're really glad you're here. I told them how wonderful you are and how you're just an amazing teacher and you know the curriculum, you have great strategies. But one of the things that really stands out for me is your leadership in implementing dual language at Virginia Avenue. You attended meetings, you went to a conference, you really understood what it takes to have a high-quality dual language immersion program. And because of that, you were a fantastic support for our first Spanish teacher, and that program continues to be full every year. And I think that long-term is just going to continue to pay amazing, incredible dividends for our students. So thank you for that. And I will get you a copy of the letter that I read to the whole audience. So come on up here so we can give you your certificate.
Mrs. Kablan from John Hanley High School.
At Jan Henley, we are lucky to have the Bantons. That's Mr. Banton here, and he's here to support his wife, Mrs. Banton. It is great honor that I introduce Mrs. Banton to be recommended as the Teacher of the Year for our school division. For the past 6 years, Mrs. Banton has dedicated countless hours and mounds of energy to making the students of John Hanley High School and the Emil Chihara Grace Innovation Center believe that they can achieve their dreams. Mrs. Banton has been an educator for 20 total years and has worked at John Hanley High School for 6 years. She is irreplaceable and such a valued member of our team. She is an innovative teacher who constantly seeks ways in which she valued members of our, she can grow in her profession. She has incorporated real-world PBL experiences in her instruction and collaborated with other teachers in our building to include these opportunities across the curriculum. She is an advocate, a leader, and a champion for any individual who may need just one instance of encouragement to overcome an obstacle. A Hanley graduate said the following about Mrs. Banton, quote, "Everyone needs someone or something that makes them better. Everyone needs that one person to help bring that out, that sunshine that has been buried deep within themselves. Everyone needs someone like Mrs. Banton." Mrs. Banton has a deep understanding of the English content and exhibits effective instructional skills. Her instructional delivery engages students in that it addresses individual students' learning styles, and she incorporates technology on a daily basis. She has done an excellent job in identifying effective strategies to improve our standards of learning pass rate in English. Student voice and choice are visible in her classroom. Ms. Banton has made numerous contributions to John Hanley High School. She can frequently be seen supporting students after school hours. She works tirelessly to communicate by phone with our families to ensure they thoroughly understand the expectations of for their children. Additionally, she supports other teachers in making school to home communication. She is a quintessential team player. Mrs. Banton is willing to do anything and everything that is asked of her in order to make the high school experience better for our students and staff. She is relentless in regards to holding high expectations for every student. Her work ethic is truly impressive. She works tirelessly to make John Hanley High School a safe place for all students. She instills confidence in the team, in our students, and I have seen that grow so much learning of all English students. Mrs. Banton is a true professional and an exemplary teacher. She also provides mentorship to our new teachers and leadership for all teachers. She volunteers for special projects, and she's actively involved in school activities. She is our tennis team coach. We definitely recommend Mrs. Banton for the highest possible accolade and without hesitation for the Teacher of the Year. Thank you, Mrs. Banton, for being with us.
And now Mrs. Hovetter, Garland Quarles.
Okay, can we do this? We want to see you all and them too. Okay, is that okay? Can we do that? Kind of like cross-eyed here a little bit? I'm Joni Hovatter, and I just want to say, let's give every single teacher, educator, or family member a huge round of applause for all the work everyone's done. I'm trying, I can't do that. Okay. Friday, like I said, was probably one of the highlights of my entire career. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to introduce you to your 2020 Winchester City Public School Teacher of the Year, Miss Katie Lamb. I'm going to tell you a lot about Katie, okay? My turn. Okay. It's with distinct pleasure to honor her in this way. Katie and I started at Garland Quarles in 2012 on the same bus, riding with everybody, going through this city. Neither she knew it, I didn't. Katie is a Hanley grad. Kudos there. And she's come full circle, and she's now teaching for our children here in Winchester. Okay, she and I began working at Quarles in 12. Katie received her bachelor's from Mary Baldwin College and her master's from SU. Go Hornets. Katie's a gifted, caring teacher leader. She expects much from her children and knows how to create a classroom that embraces excellence. She's exceptionally skilled at recognizing, building, and maintaining very strong relationships, such that she wasn't going to let me walk up here and carry that without me dropping it. So that tells you something there. She does that with students, families, her colleagues, and with us being a high-poverty school with a lot of students who have trauma, we need teachers that really, really genuinely care. Students return to see her and give her notes, and whether she's at, I think some of you might have even been coached by her, I believe. I believe that's right, I think. Whether she's doing backflips, and I mean that, with students on the playground or refereeing soccer at recesses, her students know she values each and every one of them. Moreover, she's had successful experiences as a first grade, second grade, and third grade teacher. I can almost read this without it, but that's okay. She also allowed me to kind of give her a suggestion or two, and she ended up getting her reading master's from SU and her English language learner endorsement. To me, that typifies excellence in professional growth. Miss Lamb, I like this sentence, Miss Lamb creates a dynamic transformation in her class's learning environment through consistently, that's a big word, focusing on the needs and best interest of each individual child. She's been able to do what master teachers do, or at least that's what I think, grow mastery teaching away from her. Away from her. It's not that she only has it, she's grown it away from her. And she's done that by inspiring, influencing, and impacting her fellow teachers. The other day, when they announced it, we were partying in the halls, y'all. And I've been in schools before, it was like, oh, I don't want to know what's going on down the hall. That whole school was in a vibe. It was just a lovely thing to see. And that's a credit because Katie is a go-to teacher. Her colleagues recognize her keen organizational skills. She's probably the first one to turn things into me at school, of being very detailed in her planning and her delivery of instruction. As a leader, she seeks opportunities to best reach students through collaboration, communication, and collective efficacy. She clearly recognizes the value of working hard with faculty and staff members and administrators. Sorry there. She celebrates and values her fellow colleagues at Quarles. Whether she dresses up as Thing 1 or Thing 2 for Reading Month, and then she visited every classroom, I think it's because they had something they were doing in all those classrooms. I still, to this day, have not found the shamrocks, and you're probably in on that too, the leprechauns, I'm not sure. But it's just causing fun and joy for students. She also has tractors in her classroom, and you know me, I'm a farm girl, so that matters a whole lot to me. She put those metrics computer Ozo bots and Gozo bots and had them farming all through her room. She's an all-in teacher. She possesses a collegial, cooperative, and professional manner when interacting with students, parents, fellow teachers, and administrators. Like I said, she's exceptionally organized and on time with any and all deadlines. More importantly, though, she celebrates her kids' growth, no matter how little at times or how large. I enthusiastically recommend Katie Lamb, and I am so daggone proud of this young lady. Congratulations. Oh, yeah, I gotta give this to you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of our nominees. We want to thank you so much for all that you do for Winchester Public Schools. And now Katie begins a rigorous process of preparation to represent us at the regional level. Next few weeks, she'll be putting together, with some help, an application for that process, and we look forward to her success at that level. And we'd like to finish this evening with just a few minutes of fun that occurred last Friday, so you get to see some of the response that Joni talked to you about in celebration of all of our nominees this evening. Thank you, Erin.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
You are everything that exemplifies the wonderful, amazing teachers in Winchester, and this is so well deserved. I've personally been in your classroom 100 times, I think, and I see the magic you do with those kids. Absolutely. Yeah, congratulations.
She deserves it because when we're having a hard time or something, she always helps us through it, and when we need help with something, she gives us courage to get through it. She does backflips with us.
I love Miss Lynn because she's caring, helpful, and she helps others when need be.
We are so delighted to congratulate Katie Lamb as the Winchester Public School Teacher of the Year for 2022. Today, when the information was shared, teachers were coming out in the hall to shout and dance because it's a team effort here. It really is. Winchester's a really great place, and she's an example of it.
She does a great job knowing her kids, letting me know if they need something. She just really gets to know who they are as people and what their interests are, and it's all about the kids. And even sometimes in the evening she might reach out because she's just always thinking about them. As a parent, I'm also lucky enough to have my child in her class, and she really gets the kids excited about learning. She's created an awesome classroom family environment. They want to make sure that they represent Miss Lamb everywhere they go. So it's a really cool atmosphere. She does a great job with them and is always thinking about what they need.
Katie Lamb has been at Corals Elementary School for over 7 years. She's a product of the Winchester Public Schools herself. She graduated from Hanley High School. Her students love and adore her. Her colleagues appreciate her and respect her, and she's just a great example of public education. We're so proud to honor her today, and that she represents all the amazing educators here in Winchester. So we're just proud of you, and congratulations.
So Katie Lamb is my team teacher in 3rd grade. I'm a first-year teacher, so she helped me a lot from transitioning out of student teaching, and she's just been so helpful in just knowing what I can do, and having her suggestions on that has helped me a lot.
I was totally surprised and totally shocked because I know that there are some absolutely fantastic teachers here in Winchester Public Schools, and I'm flattered that I was chosen. But as a student, and now that I've been teaching here at Quarles for 10 years, I've had some amazing role models. So I do think that building relationships is the key, because without that, they're not going to want to learn. They're not going to want to do anything for you. And building it is not necessarily something that happens overnight, and something that you have to work at, and you have to be truthful and honest and open. You have to be strict but fair, and know that they love you and you love them, and come every day as a fresh start. I think that's pretty important as well. So can we show off our chant? Yeah. Okay, ready? Here we go.
We are learners. We are amazing. We are mindful. We are bold. We are lamb.
Lamb, always lamb. That's right. Forever and always.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. And again, congratulations to all of our 2022, 2023 nominees, and especially congratulations to Ms. Lamb. Thank you. All right, at this time, we are moving on to our item B, John Carr Elementary School Showcase. By Ms. O'Donnell. Thank you.
All right, I'm glad we're celebrating teachers tonight, because I brought some phenomenal ones with us tonight for our showcase. Thank you for having us. I think we're the last ones of the year, and we are thrilled to finish as the last school board showcase. So we're going to highlight two different programs today. We have decided to take a look at second grade literacy and show you some big changes we've made in literacy at John Carr this year, and highlight what our second grade team has done. They have done a phenomenal job. So we're going to start off with them this evening, and then we're going to take a look at our pedal program, which you guys have seen before, but some changes we've made there and some wonderful things that our students and our teachers are doing. All right, so we're going to get started with second grade. First of all, I have some wonderful second grade teachers here. We have Amy Kretschmann, second grade teacher, Angie Yancey, and Amber Rieger. And they are going to do most of the talking. I'm just going to give you a little introduction, and then they're going to take over. So the reason why we wanted to talk about second grade is we realized that we were up against a pretty critical problem in second grade this year. Our kiddos that were going into second grade spent most of their formative literacy years in this COVID-impacted world, right? So they shut down in kindergarten. They missed basically an entire quarter of kindergarten. Many of them were virtual in first grade, which is not an ideal way to learn to read. It is what it was. Some of them started the year, all of them started the year only at school for 2 days a week. And we knew that our data showed last year that we had to do something different for these kids. So we did. And these wonderful teachers behind me embarked on this journey of changing everything pretty much that they had done, other than keeping with small groups, and addressing student needs. So if you take a look, we do have some data up that shows some growth that our kids have made. They've done a wonderful job working with our kiddos to make some growth with reading. And they're going to tell you about the journey that they've been on for Orton Gillingham. We had some wonderful training provided by the division where our teachers were really gung-ho. We have every single kindergarten through second grade teacher trained in Orton Gillingham. Many of them gave up an entire week over the summer to do so, just because they wanted to address the needs of kids. So they're going to talk to you about what it looks like, and I'm going to let them take the lead.
As Mrs. O'Donnell said, I'm Amber Rieger, second grade team leader here at John Carr. I will introduce kind of the concept behind where this all came from. So based on the beginning of the year, we had about 40% of our students that were reading below grade level, and we all put our brains together and realized this was a sense of urgency. We needed to do anything and everything in our power to get these kids readers, writers, spellers, whatever we could do to help close the gaps that they were having. So our plan of action was to take all of the students we had, regroup them homogeneously into 3 different groups, and readjust the groups quarterly or sooner as needed. And we would have the higher performing students in larger class sizes lower performing students and smaller class sizes and prioritize our staff with the most neediest students. So our learning snapshot at a glance, we have roughly 2.5 hours in the morning that we designate to literacy with science and social studies integrated, which we have paced out into the curriculum. Mrs. Kretschmann has about 25 students that are the accelerated readers, reading above and on grade level. Miss Yancey is the developing readers teacher. She has about 20 students in her class, and I teach the emergent readers, which are 15 targeted explicit instruction so that we can meet the foundational skills for the students. And another really important thing that we implemented was no matter the student, whether they were already receiving SPED or ESOL services, every student was part of this. And in addition to that, they were getting the other needs that they required. So for my class, as I said, my kids were performing significantly below grade level. And I had the small class, 15 were in my room. I had 2 support teachers in my room with me, and we can move to the next slide. That's okay. So in my room, there's 3 different things that we do. It's roughly an hour and 25 minutes. Me and the reading specialist, Mrs. Ford, and a teaching assistant who was a licensed teacher. We all work with 3 rotations of 25 students where we implement Orton Gillingham. That is pretty much where we base all of our instruction in order to fill those gaps of students and their needs. We focus on phonics, vocabulary, guided reading, fluency, writing, and then once all of my support comes out of the room, I model whole group with science and social studies embedded. I do many lessons with comprehension, read aloud, shared reading and writing, and then I have the opportunity to take time out when my kids do get pulled for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction, that I can then pull other students to remediate and provide intervention to. So I'm going to hit on one of the most important things that happened. It was an eye-opener for me when I first got these group of 15 students. Now, the students I have now are not the same that I had at the beginning of the year because they go in and out of the rooms as data showed us they needed to move. So if you can see the example of student 1 in September, that child could not say the alphabet. That child could not write their alphabet. They were given the opportunity to write in capital letters, lowercase, you just write the alphabet. And in March, that's the data we have because we explicitly followed OG. And I don't know if you know anything about Orton Gillingham, but it targets multisensory and the kids are engaged. You would think that students wouldn't enjoy what we do because we do backtrack to the basics, but they're extremely engaged and they're making those small successes that builds the confidence to be the readers that we know that they can be. Another thing that I implement with the students is red word instruction. So red words are the words that students cannot sound out at their current level of reading. And it's a very explicit routine that you have to follow, but the kids really enjoy it. They have kinesthetic, they use sand trays, we used bumpy paper, and the kids know the routine. It's like the old news for them. They can do it, and they love it. It's a really good way for those kids. And there was a student who started the year who knew 2 sight words, 2 red words, is and the. And out of this year, we have learned over 40 words, and that particular student can read all of them. And it's not just reading the words, but spelling them. And across the division, you can see that an area of weakness we've had consistently is spelling. So I really think that OG is the reason that we've been able to close the gap with that area of weakness. And with me, we do guided reading. I like to tie in decodables. I like to tie in science and social studies in that aspect, but while I am planning the books that we're using, I don't just pick a random book. I mean, there's a lot more involved. I have, thankfully we have the Scholastic book room, and I can go pull books and base it on the targeted letter sounds they're being exposed to, and any type of vocabulary that we're targeting, like are we talking about synonyms and antonyms or comprehension skills? So that's what I do with the guided reading and decodable aspect. And this example of writing that I do with students, so my writing in my room is much different than the writing that the accelerated and developing students do. With my kids, I started the year, I gave them the picture prompt, they had to draw the picture, and then they were given the word bear. And they had to write anything they wanted about a bear. And this was a L student, and her sentence was, they eat fish. And that was it. And that was great. And I praised her for her sentence, they eat fish, because bears eat fish. So March came, and we practiced and practiced and practiced writing. We've learned, through Orton Gillingham, you use cups. C stands for capitalize. U stands for understanding your sentence. P is for punctuation. S is for spacing and spelling. And this was her most recent writing in March. She had to follow a more detailed drawing. She had to use now 4 words. She didn't have to use the words, but they were there for support. And she ended up writing 3 pages to tell a story about ice cream. I mean, that's absolutely incredible that this student, an L, who last year wouldn't have received the service in my room and this aspect because she probably would have been pulled, for her outside service as an L student, but she didn't. She got to stay in the room and make this great success. And all of the kids have been very reluctant to say that they're readers and writers, but now you can ask them and they can say, I can read and I can write. So that's a big blessing that these students are really taking ownership of the growth that they're making. So I also talked about how I have 2 other teachers in the room with me. Mrs. Ford is the reading specialist. She also uses OG. Her major lessons, she's teaching encoding, decoding, that's spelling and sounding out the words. She likes to get the kids to take the letter sounds and blend them together to make words. And the example I included here is KRAB for crab and CRAB for crab. And we all know there's one wrong and one right. But this is a huge celebration because these kids can tell you that the k sound is 2 letters. And at the beginning of the year, they couldn't even tell you the C said k. And for them to see that, and then she went back and said, if it says k, what could it be? And then they were able to make the correction. And that's a huge success. Celebrating our mistakes and learning from them, that's been a huge thing that we've been able to implement through this model. And this is Mrs. Gale. She's the teaching assistant who was a licensed teacher. She is phenomenal. Everything that she does ties in exactly from what we're doing. So, for example, one day I was with my groups and we were reading poems and the kids could not understand rhyming words. And I was like, where is this disconnect? We've done this all year. So me and her and Mrs. Ford, the reading specialist, we were talking. I'm like, we have got to reteach this. So Mrs. Gale, can you really hit this hard next week? And in a week's time of her hitting it, me bringing it back into my rotation, the kids have now successfully been able to identify rhyming words. And another example is the L students I was referring to earlier. They are known for leaving endings off of words. So instead of saying bear, they would say bear instead of bears. So she pinpointed and targeted that for her instruction as I saw all of the errors they were making in their reading while I was doing running records. And she taught it, and it's just like the light bulb clicked. And then they were all able to come back and, make the corrections and self-correct. So I attest the success of my room with the 15 students to implementing Orton Gillingham, living by it and using it, and I appreciate having the opportunity to be trained with OG, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Yancey, and in my classroom, I started out the year with students who were just on grade level or slightly below grade level. And as such, we started the year with decodable books at the student's instructional level, and my focus had been on developing decoding strategies by using OG, or Orton Gillingham, to teach an understanding of sounds, especially areas such as, for them, digraphs, beginning and ending blends, and vowel sounds with an understanding of how syllabication affects the vowel sounds. We also have worked really, really hard throughout the year on fluency, whether it's been listening to read aloud, partner reading with a peer, or recording themselves reading in Ceis several times so that they can hear their improved fluency and understand what talking a story sounds like. And I hate to use that term, but I'm like, say it like you're telling the story, not like you're reading it, but like you're telling the story. And they have worked and listened to themselves, and they're understanding that. Also, comprehension has, of course, been a huge focus. Discussing, we make sure that we're having discussions on making reasonable predictions and confirming predictions using evidence from the story, understanding character traits and how stories might change from one character's perspective to another's throughout the story, and understanding the main idea and using evidence from the story to support it, going back and finding that. During guided reading time, when a group is not meeting with me because I don't have another person in the classroom, the other students are either working on their Lexia requirements, which has helped them immensely. They're working on writing prompts based on either student interests or interesting pictures that I put up on the board, and I ask them to use the concept of somebody wanted, but so then finally to help them write about this picture and then give them free leeway to create whatever story they want based on those pictures. And it's so funny to see the range of their different ideas come through. And I'm like, I'm hearing your voice. This is you as an author. Now we're going to go back and we're going to look at any place that it might not be clear. So that's when we talk or we peer meet and another student reads it and says, okay, I'm a little bit confused here, but wow, what a great, ending. And that has been really helpful in their developing writing because they want to write an entertaining story. And then, of course, we do sustained silent reading based on ability level and interest. In the OG instruction or the Orton Gillingham instruction for practice, we are constantly working on decoding, syllabication, and encoding strategies to continue to have students improve their abilities to read and understand the words that they're reading and how to pronounce them. There's so much involved and embedded in Orton Gillingham to help them understand how to decode these words and understand what sounds should be made. But the main thing, coming from a different grade level and teaching reading, this is my first time, only my second time teaching reading in several years, is how effective it's been to embed social studies and science into our actual literature curriculum. So that whole cross-curricular activities, we are so supportive of it. It supports our reading comprehension, our content vocabulary, our writing, our oral discussions and presentations, and an understanding of science and social studies concepts. I received an idea from Amy Kretschmann regarding, we're learning about famous Americans, let's do the biography bottles. And it gave these kids a chance to choose who they wanted to do a little bit more research on, read deeply, create a representation, and present an oral presentation to the rest of the class. And they loved it. They took total ownership. So as a result, students that were just on or slightly below grade level have shown such strong growth that we're now reading grade level chapter books in the classroom and having deeper discussions about that. And when we come to words, we have strategies to help decode it and also strategies to read forward or reread to make sure it's making sense. So it's been a very, very positive experience to see these children grow, and it's just been amazing.
And I'm Ms. Crutchman, and I have the pleasure of teaching 25 of the accelerated readers in second grade. We usually start with some phonics instruction, Orton Gillingham. My students really love it. And we follow kind of a routine throughout the week of things that we do through that, our 3-part drill. And, you know, looking at that data and seeing, you know, where do these students really need to start? Where do we need to fill those gaps? These students are readers, but where, you know, the spelling sometimes is a struggle for them, where do we need to start with them and, you know, bring that up to the same level where they're currently reading at in my classroom? I do a lot of poem of the days, shared readings, decodable passages to practice their fluency, and then we usually start with Wordle puzzles. They are just obsessed with them, and it just kind of is a way to bring in whatever we're talking about in phonics. You know, oh, okay, there's an S on the end of this word. Oh, like this might be a vowel team, and just kind of bringing all of that into the discussion, and usually they're kind of themed, and the kids are really loving that recently. Also do a lot of reading skills and strategies, mini lessons in whole group, read aloud books for listening comprehension. I started a podcast. It's kind of getting there. It's a process. And again, the science and social studies embedded in the curriculum is just really helpful for the kids because you're just getting that content-rich vocabulary out there within your reading curriculum. And then just working on word analysis skills. In my guided reading groups, the students' reading levels range from 4th grade to 7th grade reading levels in my class at the instructional level. So I see 6 different small groups, and we meet 3 groups every other day. And we focus on tying in phonics through those novels and word analysis skills, and also all of our 2nd grade comprehension skills as well. When they are at their independent rotations, because I as well don't have anybody in my room during that time, they are working on Picture of the Day, which is the writing activity. They continue to work on their phonics skills. They work on activities either independently or in small groups. They have their independent reading time, which is their choice reading time of books at their independent level. And then they also have their technology time to work on LexiCore 5 and read books that they enjoy on Epic. And then in writing, I usually follow the district pacing for my students for writing because they're ready to go as far as that. And they love just putting together that whole process of, you know, I show them, here's what we're going to do, we model it, we work through it, we edit it, they go back and they write that final piece that they can produce. So they're always excited about that. Here's just a couple examples of Orton Gillingham. Again, like Mrs. Rieger and Ms. Yancey said, I teach it exclusively in whole group, and we do our read words. Again, it's really multi-sensory with the screens behind it and just feeling like the bumpy letters. And it's a lot of just orally tapping on the arm to solidify those words that you can't sound out usually. They have different spelling patterns in them. Also, the word and sentence dictation, really important for my students to work on those spelling skills, and then the sand tray practice as well. And we'll see if this video works. So this is them using their sound drill.
Magic E. Oh, magic E. Magic E. Magic E. A magic E.
So we usually go through these, and these are all like review skills of sounds that they have previously learned. Do I have to hit escape? Yep. Okay, maybe. Oh no.
There it is.
Oh, there's the X. Oh no.
Let's choose one.
Okay, yeah, we're good. Yeah, do the sand tray one, and then we'll be good.
Hey, shake. Hey, eyes on me. You know 3 ways to spell this sound. Divide your board in 3. The sound is k. Repeat.
C spells K spells C spells
Good. Shake. Eyes on me. You know 2 ways to spell this sound. Divide your board in half. The sound is ooh. Repeat.
L says L. L says L.
Shake.
So that's just an example of they really enjoy that and just being able to know the different sounds that, k makes 3 different sounds. For the longest time, we only knew 2 ways, and they kept wanting to add that CK in there, and we hadn't gotten quite there, so now they're all excited because we got there. And then just for our reading skills and strategies lessons, again, tying it in with the science and social studies, when we did butterflies, our books, our poems, our read-alouds, all of our projects were all based around butterflies and the butterfly life cycle. I used a lot of anchor charts in my room to kind of just work on those reading skills and strategies that are at grade level. In my guided reading books, guided reading groups, we're working in our small groups at their instructional levels on novels. They extend their phonics skills in there. They're working on grade level skills and then just tying it in with whatever we're doing in science and social studies. Sometimes we'll get out of the novels and then focus on books that are more focused on those science and social studies skills. When they're not with me, they're working on cursive, partner games that they can play to work on their phonics skills. We have lots of those that they're working on, and then just their technology. And then as far as their writing, they're also doing their picture of the day, which is working on inferencing and making observations about pictures, and then writing, what do they think is happening and what's their reasoning behind that? Why do they think it's happening? Really getting them to write complete sentences, and then of course all the other writing that we do for 2nd grade. I think that's it for me.
So I just want to finish up really quickly by talking about, I hope you all got a snapshot of the passion that our teachers have. This was a new team of teachers that we put together. And so not only were we challenging them with new curriculum possibilities and trainings that they were willing to give up their time to go to, but they bought in. And the success of our kids, students that I have seen where we are working on he and is, and that's it. And we're struggling to really commit that to memory. And the success and their pride in showing what they're reading has really paid off dividends. And we're excited to see where we're able to take this training, what we've learned from the way that we've educated our students this year, and how it will carry over in the upcoming years. I'm really excited to see some of the changes that we've made with primary and how it will pay off ultimately for our 3rd and 4th graders.
Thank you, guys. Now we're talking a little bit about Pedal. Pedal is a program we have in, actually just 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. We have a little bit of 1st grade this year as well. We have our 2 Pedal teachers, Wanda King and Carly Neff, here to talk a little bit about Pedal.
Hi, I'm Wanda. Okay. So these next few slides that we're going to show you, they support the WPS Empower 2025 strategic plan.
So we're shared, so we're going to do the microphone like this. So within Pedal, we really focus a lot on the voice and choice for the students. Throughout every single unit we do, the students get a choice in the type of project they're going to complete. For example, on the left of the screen, 3rd graders were working on ancient civilizations. And so they were able to choose one of the civilizations and then a type of artifact they wanted to create. They had to research the artifact, find out why it was important, how we still use it if we do, and then they had to create their own product. And then they put on a museum for everyone else in the 3rd grade. We also, during animal ecosystems and adaptations, the students were able to choose an animal, and then they had to do in-depth research on their ecosystem, their adaptations, and all sorts of different things for that animal, and then they were able to choose different technology ways to show their learning. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a cover of a clownfish book that one of the students created. They did do this online, and they are able to manipulate the text, put in pictures, and learn a lot of different technology-based skills. They also had the opportunity to either do a video or a podcast using WeVideo, so the students are also learning how to use different programs and applications. They're able to put music and fade it in and out for intros and outros for their podcast, as well as record their voices, cut it where they need to edit the video, and then piece it back together.
So Petal, we work closely with the classroom teachers, and the students have the opportunity to share their knowledge in different ways than traditionally. So here in this picture on the right, the students again did research, and they took the information they learned and they had the choice of a video or a podcast. And these are fourth graders here. So they used their research notes to write a skit, storyboard it, record it, edit it, publish it, and then they presented the publication, the production to their class. It took a lot of courage, and we saw several students that really stepped out of their comfort zone and grew.
Let's see if we can get
Just maybe a couple little pieces of it.
So again, our kids edited this.
Hi, my name is Lucy. And my name is Natalie. And today we're going to be talking all about blizzards. So let's get started. In Antarctica, blizzard winds can blow higher than 110 miles per hour. Wow, that's really fast. Yeah. In Antarctica, there can be so much snow that sometimes you cannot see your hand even if it is right in front of you. That is a lot of snow. For a snowstorm to turn into a blizzard, the wind has to blow very, very fast, a speed of at the lowest 35 miles per hour. There can be so much snow falling and blowing, it can block your vision so that you can only see snow and ice. Blizzards can last up to hours, days, and sometimes even weeks if it is really, really bad. They can occur most often not on mountains, but more on open plains.
So these go on, and they had multiple groupings, but if you have time, I would go back and look at them.
Okay. Yeah. Some of these, the students actually downloaded a map and inserted it like they were a weathercaster. So then on our next slide.
We'll get there. Another really important aspect of Petal is that students are acquiring essential knowledge through different integrated experience and exploring different methods of learning. Up here, there are a couple different examples of what second graders were doing this year. They learn about natural disasters and how the earth can change. So 2 of the pictures there, they're experimenting with how the earth's crust can crumble from earthquakes or people walking on it, animals walking on it. And then they also got to drown a little cookie to simulate a flood. And it tied in with their reading and science and social studies stuff as well. And then another thing that they had done was learning about Native American homes and the purpose for their shelters. So they had to collaborate in different groups and then determine what kind of shelter they wanted to make. Then they had to do a prototype of that shelter. You can see one of the adobe houses down at the bottom. And then they had to test it against different elements. And they had to have it withstand wind from a hairdryer, and then also dumping water on it to simulate rain. And then we would check to see if under the house it got wet, if the building was able to continue standing, some of them would fall over. And it really helped to solidify for them why the different types of shelters were so important for different tribes and how shelter can help protect them. And then they're also not just learning different content knowledge, but they're learning life skills such as collaboration, communication, empathy, perseverance, critical thinking, and creativity. They, on the left-hand side, you'll see different groups of third graders had to collaborate and develop a way to stop flooding based on what they know about water. So in the one picture, the students were like, we could just blow the water away. So then they had to find a way to rig a hairdryer to not get into the water and electrocute themselves, to blow the water away, and it actually worked pretty effectively. Other students thought about the absorption power of sponges. So they developed a type of wall where they put sponges between it to help soak up excess water. And they had to test these and debug them and try to rethink them and listen to everyone's input for them so that way they could do the best they could do.
Then on the right, the fourth graders took their math lesson just a little bit farther and pretended that they were jewelers, and they were given a random cup of beads. So they needed to sort the beads, graph the beads, and then create a pattern, which is also incorporating computer science standards. And so they created on paper the pattern of the beads, and then when we decided that it was a true pattern and they didn't need to buy more beads, they had to use just what they had, they created the actual bracelets. This is our school store for our PBIS system. We've added some tokens, some trinkets, and fourth graders took this on themselves. They thought about what other students would like to buy, and then they created a few little prototypes, and they went around to a lot of different classes in the building and polled the students to see would they like stickers, bookmarks, keychains. The puppets were very big, pencils, lots of different things. And they came back to me with their lists. Stickers were a big hit, and the bookmarks, as you can see, the keychains. Of course, we did have to purchase some other things. But the kids they're making these things on the Cricut and the 3D printer. They're also using the Wixie program to create the bookmarks. And we're finding that it's selling really well at their house points. So in this slide, we're showing that we see everybody. At Petal, we see all the children. It's not just the high kids, we see everybody. And you have two different examples here of the ocean floor, and they're from two different levels of students, but yet they both are showing the terrain of the ocean floor, and they had labeled the ocean floor correctly. And I just thought that this was a great example of how different levels can participate and do such a great job.
Another thing that we really value with Petal is how it affects all the different stakeholders in the school. We have had school board members come to carnivals and museum presentations. We allow the students to make their work public and really share it. And then we love to see how it's impacting all students and their teachers. One thing is, this year we had Petal going down to second grade, and our second graders, we had 11 of them that were passing the cognitive assessment for gifted testing, which is an extremely high number, especially compared to many years and under the circumstances of COVID that we've had. But some of the different themes that we found as we asked people, what has Petal done for you? What has Petal done for your students? What have been your favorite parts of Petal? One of the things that we constantly get is that it is for everyone. Every single kid is able to feel success with us. It's leveling the playing field. It's letting all of the students have access to resources and projects that they might not otherwise get. And it helps to really integrate and extend their learning that's taking place in the classroom. The students love that they get choice. They're finding ways that it relates to their life. They're enjoying getting to be creative and really put all the different strengths that they have into work. And it honestly is just such a blessing to be able to see them grow, and some of the students that you would never expect do the absolute best in the Petal Lab. So it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. So, just to sum up, whether it's second grade in our literacy program or it's Petal, personalized learning is what we're all about here at John Kerr, and that's something that we continue to strive for and will continue to change and grow as time goes on.
Thank you so much, Ms. O'Donnell. And your team, before you guys leave, though, I would like to open up the floor for board members to ask questions or make comments about your presentation. So I'll start down here. Mr. Reginald?
I can just say I've seen it firsthand, and it's awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was impressed by the gains made in the reading as demonstrated on the data for your scores. When will there was the upper right-hand box, we will have those scores when?
End of the year. Okay. Yeah. And that was really a leap of faith for them. I mean, this is something completely different that we've never done before. So I'm really proud of the teachers for taking a leap of faith to do something completely different.
And I believe you may be looking at the PAL score, and that was third quarter, and we don't take that, it's a mid-year. So it's the beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of the year, and that's the reason that one box was blank.
Ms. Trubin?
I missed going to the Petal Lab this year, but have been in prior years, and it's just phenomenal, and really look forward to it. So it was nice to have this kind of refresher and see what's new and different from prior years. I had a quick question also too on the PALS data specifically. If I recall correctly, if I'm a student in kindergarten or first grade and I pass at a certain level, I don't ever take it again, correct?
No,
or
all
is
of our
that
students
after like
in
second grade or something?
All of our students in K1 and 2 take PALS 3 times a year.
Okay, but
and then
after
in
that,
third grade, only a few, and then it's done after third grade.
okay, thanks. That's what I was just trying to see if that 64% was of everyone or was that a subset? So, thank you.
Sure.
I thank you for that presentation. It was very informative. The one question I have is about parents, interaction with parents. Do we have a way of maybe sitting down with parents, even individually or even a group with the kids that are actually having the most problems to share some tools that they could use at home to help you and benefit them?
Yeah, that's a great idea. The only time we really do that is conferences, which are in October, so that's fairly early in the year with those students, and we do share some methods, but that's something definitely that we need to, even continue to look at more.
I think one of the things that our instructional coach, I'll go to the microphone, but one of the things that our instructional coach did at our most recent set of conferences is she set up a station here in the cafeteria for math stations where our families could pick up manipulatives and game type material where they can reinforce those skills that they're learning here. But she also set up a station where you could really see what a second grade reader is supposed to look like. I think a lot of times one of the things we notice in our conferences, you're supposed to be a Rigby 7. Well, if you're not an educator, you have no idea what a Rigby 7 might look like or what your goal for your student is. So that was one of the things that she did through our parent education as well, which I think is huge and something I'd like to see us continue to grow on.
Thank you. I did have one comment. I really was so impressed with the way that your teachers use the sensory tools and techniques to really make those connections in learning and reinforce the learning. I think that's wonderful. And I was just really happy to see the actual progress over stages and really, see what the students are doing in the classroom, which sometimes we don't get an opportunity to see that. So that was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. All right. That moves us to item number 3 on our agenda this evening, that is public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that has signed up to make comments and address the board this evening? Okay. Doesn't look like there's anyone here in the audience that would like to address the board, so I'll move on to number 4, our consent agenda. We have on our consent agenda approval of consent agenda items, agenda, minutes, bills, facility usage, salary scales, and minor policy revisions.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Holman, a second by Mr. Birchenall. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. That takes us to item number 5, action items. I think we have 3 this evening. Sorry, my screen is frozen. There we are. First one, we have major policy revisions. Dr. Joyner and Ms. Mullins.
Hello. Oh, there we are. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. GBB is on here for your review and approval. The only reason we place this on major is that it is a new policy. So it's all green, as you will see in the attachment there. So in case there were any questions, we placed it here so we could review. It is required by code. The policy is going to look familiar to you because you will notice language that you have seen in many other policies that exist within our policy manual that concerning discrimination. You may recognize Title IX language, Title VII language. In some ways, the boundaries policies talks about teachers and students, but similar language and definitions is defined by federal law. In the boundaries especially, you'll see our expectations about serving as role models, and then also language in the teacher professional evaluation system, our expectations and standards for professionalism. So required by code, that's why you see the language that is there. And as you see, retaliation or reprisal is against policy. It's prohibited, and employees who contribute to such a definition of abusive work environment would be appropriately disciplined. That means under Title VII, EEOC or any of those other places where it's familiar. So familiar to you, but new in that it's a new policy and all new, so all green. I'll take any questions.
Okay. I do assume that every board member has had a chance, an opportunity to kind of look over.
Yes, they have, and I have one correction in the bottom of the abusive conduct section, and it has to have an apostrophe S on the its. So we'll thank our
Thank you,
board
Dr.
members for that.
Are there any questions for Dr. Joyner?
No apostrophe. It's just an S. Yeah. Sorry, an addition of the S, no apostrophe. I must have said apostrophe out of habit. Sorry.
Any questions for Dr. Joyner so far? Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. This evening, we're also reviewing updates to IGBA, which is the Program for Students with Disabilities. The current policy outlines the provision of a free and appropriate public education, the utilization of an individualized education plan, and our adherence to the federal and state regulations. The updates tonight that we are seeking your approval include specified language for the guidance specifically for families when there is a diploma change. Most specifically, when a curriculum or statewide assessment change impacts a student's ability to access a standard diploma. These updates, upon your approval, would be reflective of our current practices as well as state regulations in special education to inform these families of the limitations of specific diploma options. So unless there are further questions or specific questions, we would seek your approval for these amendments as proposed.
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. Do we have any questions for Ms. Mullins? Comments? Okay. Remember, this is an action item for this evening.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the revisions to policy GBB and IGBA as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Holman. Is there a second? A second by Ms. Crawford. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed say the same. All right, thank you. This passes. Moving on to B, Special Education Annual Plan. That's also you, Ms. Mullins. Thank you.
Before I get started, I did want to personally thank Dr. Van Kukelum, the Winchester Public Schools community, as well as the board for just welcoming me with open arms over the last year. It has been just a whirlwind of a transition, and I am thrilled and very excited for the direction that we're moving. So thank you all very much. Before we get into the actual digging into the deep of the annual plan, because some of it is very technical and specific, I did want to give an overview of just the state of special education in the school division, because I think that it sort of frames the decisions that we'll be talking about this evening. In comparing our enrollment data as well as our eligibility trends, we recognize that there has been a decrease in enrollment within the school division. So we wanted to make sure that we were informed on how that compares with our overall student eligibility. While we have identified that there is a reduction in our overall student eligibility for students with disability, we are recognizing a pretty stable trend with overall our students with disabilities being identified at about a rate of 14%, which does mirror the national average. In looking at our student representation, our representation is very consistent with state and national trends as well, where the majority of our students are comprised of students with learning disabilities, particularly in reading. We are seeing some increases in our autism population, which also mirrors the state and national trends. One area that we are continuing to monitor are our other health impairment areas, the OHI, as well as our emotional disabilities, our ED population, particularly as it relates to the impact of COVID, recognizing that there have been some very significant and traumatic experiences for our students over the last several years, and we're not quite sure exactly how that may manifest into specially designed instruction that they may need in the future. We believe that our human resources are our greatest asset in special education, and we are pleased that our staffing reflects that. The majority of our money and our human capacity is spent on our teachers, which we have 47 as total, And we also have 6 speech language pathologists, SLPs, which also comprise of our larger staff population. Those are our 2 direct service providers, so they directly see our students with disabilities and address their specially designed instruction needs. Moving down more towards the funding element, which is the purpose of our time together this evening, I wanted to hone in specifically on the federal allocation of our funding, which is the purpose of actually the annual plan. While we'll be looking at a lot of money tonight, over $1 million, you can see that we're only really talking about a little over 10% of our budget. We are very generously supported by you at the local level and at the state level. So while we are talking about the use of a lot of money and we want to be judicious in that use, we recognize that it is just a small part of our operating budget, which is just under $10 million. So getting into the actual annual plan itself, there are 5 primary areas of the annual plan that we are required to present to the board. Our CEC has reviewed it and endorses this proposal as required by the state regulation, and then it will be approved by the Department of Education. So I have to walk us through 5 different areas, but really the purpose behind the annual plan is just our agreement and assurance that we are using federal funds to serve our students ages 2 to 21 inclusive under the state and federal regulations. The first area that we needed to look at refers to the maintenance of effort, and this is where we are required to maintain the same amount or dedicate more money than years previous for students with disabilities in 4 primary categories, either our total allocation at the local and state level, or our per capita or per student at the local and state level. We have reviewed and asserted that we have met maintenance of efforts requirements, which is a good thing. We're required to do so to keep our funding. Our next area that we're required to review is just referred to as the Comprehensive Early Intervening Services, CEIS. And it's my hope that in the next several years, we won't even be having to talk about this. CEIS actually requires that we set aside 15% of our budget because of an overrepresentation or disproportionate representation of a particular student group. Our student group are Black and African American students that are identified with intellectual disabilities. So we actually have to use $160,000 to account for remedying this disproportionality. We're very excited. The new numbers were just released. And while we are looking at a risk ratio of about 3 to come off of that list, we are now down to 3.1. So very excited that we are on that downward trend and very hopeful that future presentations would allow us to use this money perhaps in different ways. One of the most notable changes to our CEIS use of funds this year relates to our MTSS usages at the elementary and secondary level. Previously, we have funded different curricula and training initiatives, and they've been very well received, but we haven't had a systematic approach of buy-in from our coaches, our specialists, our equity coordinator to really dig in deep to how can we systematically use these as opposed to just using them to purchase things. So these recommendations will be going to the state with collective buy-in and support from our specialists, coaches, and our equity coordinator. The next area that we'll review is the Proportionate Set-Aside Funds, the PSA, and those are our funds that we're required to set aside for our students that are parentally placed in a private school or choose to homeschool. We are seeing a relatively significant increase in our Proportionate Set-Aside Funds due to the overall increase in our homeschool population. These funds will be used as a first-come, first-served basis and will be designated for consultative special education service, direct speech services, and then consultative occupational therapy services. Our next 2 areas relate specifically to the bulk of our funding. So 611 refers to the Special Education Federal Program Grant, which serves our students kindergarten all the way through 21 inclusive. We will be maintaining a relatively stable level of funding this year, and we will be using the funds to support our teacher assistant, 5 special education teachers, 2 educational specialists, and an administrative assistant. The use of these funds is consistent with how we've previously used them in the past. Additionally, we'll be setting aside some money for private evaluations, so our independent evaluation requests, which families can take advantage of. Specific contracted services that we're continuing to keep an eye on, so our vision services, our hearing impaired services, as well as our OT services, and then professional development. Our final area that we'll be looking at this evening relates to our early childhood special education program, in which we're seeing relatively stable level of funding for next year, we anticipate. And all of these monies go to support our regional efforts to serve our early childhood population. This evening, I would seek your approval of the annual plan as presented, and I'm certainly more than happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. I'll open up the floor for questions for Ms. Mullins. Okay, Ms. Holman?
I do have one question, and this was a great presentation. How many students receiving special ed services are homeschooled or privately schooled?
So right now we have 17 students that are seeking our ISP services.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Rubin, Ms. Crawford, questions? I did have one question. Looking at slide number 3, I know you made mention about or to the emotional disability. What's the criteria, or how is that measured? Do these students have an assessment, an evaluation, and how are we measuring that?
That's a great question, and I would say that truly assessing the impact of an emotional disability for our students is very difficult. We can certainly see with a specific learning disability where you have a number and that clear discrepancy. You can see where a child has an intellectual disability. But when we relate to an emotional disability, the state outlines specific criteria in which a student has to have atypical responses under normal circumstances for a pervasive period of time. So some of these things, while we may be seeing an impact of social and emotional impact due to COVID, we're not yet seeing that pervasive over time criteria. So while we would certainly be engaging in required assessments, our psychological, our educational impacts, we would be looking at that pervasive atypical responding. Great question.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I was thinking about what you said, and thank you for clarifying that, because we also have to consider developmental stages and all those other external factors that can affect someone's emotional state.
Absolutely. And we've been talking as a team recently about establishing our local thresholds for eligibility. And one of the things that we are trying to establish with our diagnostic team, our school psychologists, our diagnosticians, is really evaluating whether or not our baseline has shifted. Whether that be social, emotionally, behaviorally, or academically. We recognize that it has, but the reality is that the IDEA criteria has not changed. So how do we marry both while protecting our students who do require special education services, while at the same time protecting some that do not, because we recognize that a special education eligibility can be very detrimental just by giving a child a title.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Ms. Mullen? Again, this is an action item for this evening.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Special Education Annual Plan Part B flow-through application as presented.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you, Ms. Trubin. We have a motion by Ms. Trubin, a second by Ms. Holman. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Motion passes. And that brings us to our final action item for this evening, budget amendments. Mr. Miller.
Hi, good evening. Tonight, just as a reminder, typically throughout the fiscal year or through our budget cycle, we will come to you with 2 budget amendments. One that occurs at the end of October, which is us changing or adjusting our grant balances and so forth for items that have come in the first part of the year. This is the second adjustment for our budgets. We must declare any new additional revenue to the City of Winchester, who then must approve that additional revenue. So this document is what is required to us to pass along to the city. Tonight, there are 2 we received a donation for $15,532. And then with the bulk of this is to adjust our federal funds, of which there are 5. One is, most of these were notifications in our grant budgets that occurred after November 15th. So we've been proceeding along knowing that this has already been authorized by the state. But Perkins is for $36,560. Virginia Title I preschool is $49,561. The homeless was an increase of $6,675. The COPS grant is an actual decrease of $80,375, and then Title 6B is an increase of $741,255, which we obviously had received notification right after we approved our our fall adjustment, so we had just missed that time frame. But otherwise, I don't know if there are any questions. Be happy to address those.
Any questions for Mr. Miller? No? Okay, this is our last action item for this evening. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the FY22 budget amendments as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Holman, is it a second by Ms. Trubin. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
All right. Our last public item for this evening's agenda is our John Carr School Improvement Plan. And we have back Ms. O'Donnell and Ms. Levi.
Hello again. All right, this year we focused on 3 different areas for our school improvement plan: reading, math, and our community. We'll talk about reading first, and the good news is you just got a very detailed description of exactly what we're doing in reading this year. So this year we had one overarching goal. We took a look at DRA scores in 4th grade as a measure for our overarching goal. Our goal is for 65% of our students or more to be on grade level for their DRA. DRA measures on grade level assessments to make sure that you're reading on grade level. We then made sub-goals for each grade level, and you'll see those as we scroll down a little bit. But the 3 ways that we were going to address the reading need were literacy labs. You learned a little bit about our 2nd grade literacy labs earlier. That is really the method we're using in both 1st and 2nd grade, as well as our PEEP model, where we have moved to more of a, moved away from the traditional balanced literacy and instead have moved to more of an intervention and regrouping model that we've had really good success with. And our 1st and 2nd grade. Kindergarten's a little bit different. For 1st and 2nd grade, that's the model we've used consistently. Part of that has included Orton-Gillingham strategies, which you saw in action earlier. And then for our older children, in addition to those things, we also have PEDAL, which you also saw earlier, where students are applying their knowledge on their level for personalized learning. The Orton-Gillingham strategies have also been extremely successful with our 3rd and 4th grade students in intervention to help kind of close in some of the gaps that we've needed to work with children on in reading. Here you can see some data. Of course, we have a variety of different assessments that we give in reading based on the grade level of the child. So you'll see our 3rd and 4th grade DRA scores. We've already met our goal for the year, which is amazing because we met our goal in the mid-year. We've seen some incredible gains with those children, as well as the progress like you saw earlier in 2nd grade. That's overall 2nd grade. The 3 teachers you saw earlier, there's actually 2 more 2nd grade teachers as well, part of our PEEP program. So that's an overall 2nd grade picture. And again, like you asked about PALS, there is no data there because there is no sum score for the mid-year in PALS, but our children have made drastic progress in the measures that we have. And then as one of our sub-goals, we looked at SOL reading data. Typically we use this as our overarching goal, and we decided to do it a little differently this year. But you'll take a look at the goals that we have for children. You'll see that the SGA is the measure that we currently have. That's a reading assessment we give. It's a good predictor for our SOL test in reading. And we gave that assessment in March for our students. And so we've made some really good gains in progress. We have then kind of changed our instruction in 3rd and 4th grade to target needs for children, the things that are missing from here. Of course, these are minimum growth. We hope to hit even higher than our goal. And this year we have a really exciting opportunity to show growth on our SOL assessment. So that is something we've never been able to do at all in 3rd grade. And it certainly will help our students, especially our students with disabilities, who may show significant progress, but it may not be enough to meet that passing score on the SOL. And that's it for reading. Ms. Levi is going to talk about math for us.
So I'm going to talk math very quickly. You can see at the top there, our goal for our math students this year was our 3rd and 4th grade students will pass the math SOL assessment will increase, or the passing rate will increase to 65% or higher. And so, you know, we've also got that opportunity to show that growth through our assessments with the new growth measure that we took in the fall. But we're really excited to see some of what we've put in place this year and just expanding on what we've had in the past. So you can see our 3 tenets down there are guided math, targeted intervention, and then the PEDAL program. Guided math is a district initiative. It's not new, but it is something that we've really made sure that we focused on. As we've seen as a theme throughout the evening, personalized learning is really, really important for us, and that's where we're seeing that opportunity to go back in and build up those foundational skills, and especially then taking that over to our targeted interventions. When you're a math teacher, you don't need to just know the content, but you need to really be able to get in and see where students' missteps are. So there's a lot of diagnosing and figuring out, okay, this is where your thinking is off. And that guided math model really provides that opportunity because it's done in small groups. Students are doing math there in front of you, and it's almost like you're seeing their thinking process. I know when I taught math, my kids were really frustrated when I was like, no, you're gonna show me this work, but it's so that you can determine specifically where their missteps are. And then taking that information and then combining it also with our targeted intervention. So for the first time this year, we've had an interventionist on our staff, and they've really targeted our math skills and able to pull small groups of students in addition to what our IRTs will work with our students, but that interventionist has also been able to do some diagnostics through the use of the Bridges kits, which is something that has been provided for us by our instructional department downtown. It's been really nice. It's been able to dig back a couple years. So if you have a student that's trying to build, you know, doing math, it's very much spiraled, and if you don't have a strong foundation, it's hard to get to those upper level skills. So this has given us a way to really evaluate and see where our students are, where their holes are, try to start plugging those so that we can build on top of it. And then with the PEDAL, and I think the PEDAL program for our math instruction is really important because if you're not a math-brained person, it's really difficult to see the value of why am I learning this? What's the importance of it? But when you can apply it to highly engaging activities, it really makes that instruction more worthwhile and our students buy in more. So all those types of instructional techniques we're working towards getting to that pass rate of 65% or higher. And so you can see we've got some data here. We are actually in the process this week of taking the 4th grade math SGA, and we just wrapped up the other one, so that's the reason those scores aren't there. But you can see where we ended at the end of last year. We had an overall pass rate of 52%, and our goal is to hit 70% at the end of this year, so even above that 65%. And then we looked for areas where we had those largest achievement gaps, and for that, there's students with disabilities and our Black and African American students. So we really have a lofty goal of trying to go back and make sure that, you know, those gaps are closed. We want all of our students, regardless of backgrounds, to make sure that they're seeing success that everybody is capable of. So it's really digging in, and through the diagnostic, try to make sure that we're pinpointing and provide the personalized instruction that they need to be successful.
The last thing is our community. Our goal this year was for students and staff to experience a positive community. So we have made a staff goal for 63% of our student goal to report favorably on the Panorama survey regarding social emotional learning. We focused on regulating challenging feelings. So that was an assessment, that survey that we gave last year. It was the very first time we've given it. So we're giving it this week, so we don't have any data yet. But we're excited to see if we have met our mark for that, as well as then our teachers. Feedback and coaching is an area that we would like to continue to grow. We get in classrooms every single day, but we don't always get into classrooms as frequently as we'd like to for walkthroughs and formal evaluations. So the 3 ways that we were going to do that, we did adopt the Move This World social emotional curriculum across the division this year. And so that's been something that our teachers have been incorporating into morning meetings and their group times. And then we also, Ms. Levi is an expert in restorative practices, and so she's been helping guide me in that, so that we're doing a little bit more of the restorative circles with our students who are struggling or have issues with another student. and we hope to train more staff on that. We had a lot of staff to go before the shutdown and COVID happened. So actually, we haven't gotten to train them yet, but that is our goal eventually. As well as we have 2 counselors this year, which we love, and that allows us to do more small groups with students for social emotional learning. So that's another strategy that we've used. And then lastly, we've tried to increase our targeted feedback through our walkthroughs and formal observations during the school year. That's it.
All right, thank
Questions?
you. Questions for Ms. O'Donnell, Ms. Levi? No? Ms. Holman?
I'm looking at the goals. Let me start up on math. I'm sorry, reading was first. We have the goals for reading. I noticed what happened to the goals for reading. So our end of year goals, these are not broken down, so I can't use that one as an example. But if I look at the math goal, we've got an overall goal. We're increasing our overall goal by 18%. Our students with disabilities were increasing by 21%, but our African American students were only increasing, our goal is only 12% higher. Why is that?
We typically took what we need to make our accreditation and our benchmarks as our goal. So we were looking at that 10% or higher, and that's the reason why. We also typically, if you look back into our data from the past years, our students with disabilities, many of them have made a lot of growth, but it's not often enough to pass their SOL, but we see significant growth. So our hope was that this year, with the growth measure, we'd be able to see even more of a gain than what we typically would expect. I mean, that 21%, that would be a huge jump. But when we look back, our kids usually make a ton of growth, it's just not quite enough. So that's the reason why we did that.
So, and I understand there's students with disabilities, but what are we doing to narrow that gap? That's a 30% gap is pretty high. And when we say that, you know, our goal is for 65% of our students, 4th graders, to be at reading level, what are we doing to bridge it? Because after 4th grade, we're sending them on to the intermediate school. So what supports are we doing to try to help that 35%? Because if they're behind now, moving forward, they're going to be behind then. And that's when I think we see students get frustrated in the classroom, don't want to go to school because they don't have that foundational to go to the next level.
Sure. So one thing that we are doing in math that's different this year, we do have our interventionist. So she is going all the way back to the level that students are working. We typically are not able to go as far back as sometimes children need. We have some students who are really missing some pretty significant gaps, and she goes back and fills in the gaps for the math instruction. A lot of that is place value, number sense, those types of things. And that is one way we're doing that. That's in addition to the regular math time. So they're getting that outside of their math time instead of replacing their math time in a typical day. And that's something that's new to us. That's something brand new that we're trying out this year, of course. And then in regards to reading, we do have 3 IRTs that work mostly with reading across the board. They're, in 2 cases, retired, very successful retired teachers, and in 1, a part-time teacher. And they do provide interventions throughout the day in both reading and math for targeted students, as well as then, of course, we do regroup based on levels and target instruction, as we kind of discussed in our presentation earlier. Does that answer your question?
Just to add to that a little bit too, we noticed, by mid-year, we're seeing these gains where we really changed kind of the model for our emergent readers at each grade level. So where we were able to pour those resources in and make it so there was less time where they're away from a teacher, because we know that for some of our students, they need more of that time with an adult that's evaluating and looking and constantly checking in to make sure that they're going to maximize their time here at school. That is certainly something that we did, that we made adjustments to our models at 3rd and 4th grade as well. We went from our reading specialist just doing pull-out to pushing in and doing that lab-like model for our lowest readers at that grade level to try and close those gaps and make sure that they've got that opportunity not just to work on the 1 grade level and even at their reading level, but build in some of those foundational skills where we brought in the decoding and things like that that typically you don't teach at the 3rd and 4th grade level because it's more of a kindergarten 1-2 type of skill, but we know that we have gaps there. And so making sure that they've got that opportunity to build that decoding and that word attack that they might not typically get in a 3rd and 4th reading class when you're really looking at comprehension. So I think that has helped too. And it's something that we saw was being successful at our second grade classes, and we put in to help those readers there.
Kind of on the flip side, we also have Pedal, because I do believe that if kids aren't able to apply their learning, then we're not going to see the growth. So that is something that is accessible for all students regardless of what level they're working on. So they're able to take that content that they're learning in science and social studies and apply it in the reading and math classrooms.
Are there any plans for any summer programs to help continue to build the competency and not let some of the gains that have been made lapse during our typical summer learning loss?
Sure, we do have a summer school that we are planning. We're having those conversations right now with our students with disabilities about extended school year, which is one option for them as well. And there's some L programs as well as some metrics programs during the school year, during the summer for us to have our children participate in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right. That does conclude our public portion of our meeting this evening. Ms. Holman.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, motion that the board convene in closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters, including prospective candidates for employment and the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees, specifically candidates for instructional license positions for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, candidates for instructional license positions for the 2022-2023 school year, substitute teachers and support staff coaching stipends, transfers, and acceptance of the resignations and retirements is listed for school board review.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Holman. We have a second? Second by Mr. Birchnall. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. We are now in closed session.